you were given this attention for a reason. How do you keep it? And so,
well, as quickly as you can get attention, you can lose it. And so that's the main thing, is how do all the people that are paying attention to you in the moment, how do you keep them around?
What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. I have been doing a lot of branding strategy work with artists lately, which has been super fun. And I've been repeating this fact that I know to be true, and it's sometimes advice I forget to apply to myself. And it's this. On Instagram, creating reels are to attract new followers, and creating feed posts are to nurture your current followers. So if all you care about, if your only strategy is making your reels go viral, then you're ignoring the people who sacrificed a precious millisecond of their time to give you a follow. And so when you think about your artistry, it's always this two-pronged approach, right? You got to reach new people and you got to show love to your existing fans. This is true with the music you make. It's also true with the way you present yourself online. It's all encompassing. And it's easy to forget this fact when the pressures of the industry stays on our necks and more is being demanded of producers, content creators, all of us creative folks. Numbers wise, it's crazy. I get it. And that's why it's so crucial to have someone in your corner like Corynne Burrows. Now, Corynne is the CEO of Midas Touch Management. She manages artists like Miles O'Neill, yes, that O'Neill, Side Piece, and Henry Fong, and she's been their trusted advisor through the ups and downs of this crazy business. So today on the podcast, we are talking about what artist managers do for artists, and no, it's not. They solve all your problems. What artists need to do first before being ready for a manager, and what managers like her are looking for in fresh talent. This episode has everything, like literally everything you need to know about artist management. So enjoy this conversation and share with a producer friend who might also find this helpful. I am so happy to have you join me, Corynne. You are the CEO of Midas Touch Management. I'm very excited to dig into some of these topics today. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So you manage a lot of artists like Miles O'Neill, Nitty, Side Piece. I mean, your roster is incredible.
Thank you.
Tell me this, the people who are listening to this show who are interested in management, if they take what you say to heart today, how might their artist journey change?
It's a good question. I think that there's a lot of techniques and processes that I have developed over the last 10, 12 years. So I've taken a lot of what I've seen work for other people and what I've seen not work for other people and kind of applied it in my own way and allowed the artists to apply it in theirs. So I think if anything, you'll get a better understanding of what may or may not work for your project.
That's great. Yeah, that experience is so invaluable. So I want to talk about like the misconceptions of management because it comes up so frequently. But before we do that, tell me what you actually do for your artists.
Do quite a bit. So we do full scope at my company. So we have people in marketing and PR and obviously handle like the touring logistics. We handle everything when it comes to the label side of things. We help with the publishing side of things. So basically anything that you're doing for your artist project, either I'm handling or one of my team members is helping with.
Wow. I mean, I can imagine that support, to have that kind of support is invaluable as an artist because so many people feel like, they need to do it all themselves. And you do to a certain extent, right? Like you have to learn the ropes on your own, I think, before you can have a team. But yeah, that support is amazing.
Yeah, it's taken a while to build out the team. And my whole approach to the company in general was if I could build out a one-stop shop. What would I need? And then finding obviously the people that are great at the things that I'm not, to have that support system around the artists.
Yeah. Finding the people with the complementary skill sets to work with you is huge. I have definitely learned that in like my independent contractor journey. I think it's important to have like a base level knowledge of everything, but you have to be able to delegate if you want to grow.
Sure.
And you know that as a business owner.
Delegation is the biggest part of it. I'm also a control freak. I'm so Virgo, it's insane. So it's relinquishing control of those things is difficult. And I know that that's the same for a lot of artists who care about every single thing that's going on with their project. So just having people you can trust to execute your vision is like the single most important thing I think that anybody could have.
Huge. When's your birthday? So if you're a Virgo, your birthday must be soon.
Yeah, it just happened August 31st.
Oh, happy late birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% can relate to that because it is so, and when you do find somebody that you trust, you're like, oh my God, I cannot lose this person because it's so hard to find as a control freak.
100%.
And it's something like you just have to take risks. Like you have to take a risk on someone and see if they work out. And if they don't, you learn something from it and you learn like, okay, well, this, bringing on this type of team member, with this personality might not work.
Right.
And I think that like, that's something that a lot of artists can relate to too, because they, it's their art, it's their baby and they want to be in control of all of it. But like, you're not going to be able to grow unless you start delegating.
Exactly. I mean, half my team is Virgos too. So if you find people that you align with and they understand you, then find more of them.
Is that like a question on their application? What's your sign? What's your big three?
It's actually not. It's so crazy. But I think honestly more than half, probably like 5 or 6 of the 8 people that we work with are Virgos. It's nuts.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, you guys are executing at a high level. So I want to talk about, because I think people, and even myself, I don't always know what a manager means, because I think you can also really tailor fit that title depending on what the artists need. I think it means a lot of different things. So talk to me maybe about like the misconceptions. What do people think you do that you don't actually do?
I think the biggest misconception is that we party for a living, which is not the case at all. Or that like we only work sometimes. We're working 24/7, 365. Like there's really no clock in, clock out. This is not a 9 to 5 job by any means. You don't get holidays off, none of that. And yeah, the partying for a living side of things is like, that's just the cherry on top of all of the weeks or months of work prior to that moment that everybody's seeing.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. So when I did ARC Music Festival interviewing artists, I realized when I was in it, I was like, okay, I am seeing the least amount of sets I've ever seen at a festival. And I am and I still had a great time. But when you're working in this industry and you have to make sure as a manager, I'm sure that you're, the photography and videography is on point, that your artist is being taken care of. Like it is a full wraparound service at the actual event. So your work doesn't end. And it's not, your work doesn't end even after the event. It's like, what are the deliverables once the show is done? Like, so yeah, I mean, you've got to just be like burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah. It's really difficult when you get to like EDC Vegas and you have, 5 or 8 sets over the course of like 3 days. And you're running from one interview to a set, to another set, to another interview. And it gets really, really crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is important for people to hear the other side of things. And that's why I'm bringing on more experts to this show, because, people tend to like point fingers at, well, labels do nothing. And like they feel like, that, more of the burden is on them. And I will say that there's there's definitely a bigger, more pressure now on artists to be able to do more, but that doesn't mean that the pressure has been taken off of people like you. It's just,
no, I think there's just more pressure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, what would you say to somebody who, is an artist and maybe they're struggling to, make things happen. They've had some marginal success. What would you say to them if they were like, oh, well, when I get a manager, that'll solve all my problems?
A manager is not going to solve all your problems. That's for sure. I think a manager will help you kind of dissect your problems and try to help you find solutions. But having a manager doesn't prevent more problems from coming. It just gives you a person to kind of bounce ideas off of how to maybe resolve the issues or how to elevate whatever it is that you're trying to do or get more exposure or get in the right rooms and knock on doors and those sorts of things. But if there are problems within your career, it doesn't matter whether you have an artist, an agent, a label, all of those things, those problems will persist until you've kind of resolved whatever that issue is. And then you have a new set of problems to address because you've gone to the next level. It's just like graduating up the ladder of problems.
Yeah. I said earlier today, like more money, more problems to my house. I don't even know what I was talking about, but it's cliche, but it's the truth.
It is.
So can you kind of walk me through, first of all, like chicken or the egg, do you find clients or do clients find you?
Now clients find me.
Okay, so when you first started, it was like you were a little more open to like applications per se of people reaching out to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like I've always got my eye, like I'm a consumer. I'm a fan of this industry. I came from GA front row running down the stairs of the festivals. Like I lived that life and I wanted it to be my job. So I will always be a consumer and a fan and looking for those sorts of artists that stick out and maybe think, wow, this is something different, something to pay attention to. So I am actively scoping in those circumstances always. But more so than not, now it's just, hey, so-and-so mentioned you, thought you might be a good fit. Do you want to have a conversation? And I'll dive into it and see, mainly it's like, what do they need help with? And do I think that I'm the right person to help them?
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of those things that you're looking for? If someone wants to catch the attention of a manager, because I do think that that's a different goal than trying to increase your social media following, for example.
Yeah.
I feel like artists are so overwhelmed by all the things they need to do that they lump it all together. And one thing that I always preach to my Patreon students, like whether they're going to a networking event or festival or whatever, it's like go in with one goal in mind, because then you can really, you're going to be able to divert all your attention to it. So what are the things that you are looking for? Like what stands out to you?
I think the biggest thing is just somebody who really, truly lives and breathes whatever their artist project is. Once you fully have committed to whoever you are as an artist, whatever that brand is going to be, then you'll hear it in your music. You'll see it in the social media. You'll see it in the way that you carry yourself and you dress and your photos and your music videos and all of those other things. But if you haven't landed on who it is that you're trying to be as this persona and being able to kind of separate the individual from the artist, I think is a very important thing, because those get lumped in a lot. And sometimes it works. A lot of times I've seen that it doesn't. But being able to just kind of carry that sort of energy through the course of anything that you're doing is what sticks out the most to me personally.
Okay. So what I think I hear you saying is like having a strong personal brand.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that necessarily means you need to have millions of followers already.
No, I don't think that you do have to have them to start. I think that I always say two things. One is an artist, a true superstar will always find their people, and good music will always find its way to the top. Just because you released a great record and it didn't get the attention that you maybe thought it was going to initially doesn't mean that 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that it's not going to have a moment, or somebody may find something worthy of sampling that's then going to go viral or whatever. It will always find its way. And I think the same exists for artists in general. Like, if you know who you are as a person, then you also will know who's your herd. And your fans will be able to gravitate towards you, and they will find like-minded individuals that are also fans of you. And then that herd continues to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. I a few other artists mention that point, that first point you said about, tracks resurfacing years later. And it led to like massive success for them. And that's just a testament to something that I like preach way too frequently on this show, is like your art does you no favors unreleased. So, putting it out there, because you don't know if a couple years down the road, something's going to happen with it. It is so possible.
100%. And I think a lot of people do hold it very close to chest, like, oh, well, it's not quite ready yet. It's not quite ready yet. I'm the type of person where if you let me sit on something forever because I don't feel like it's perfect, I will. Mm-hmm. And I think the same goes with a lot of artists, or it's just not quite there yet. And at some point, you just have to release your babies into the world, let people, receive them however they will. It'll land with some people, it won't with others. And good music will always find its way.
Yeah. And it takes repetition. I always think about, because I'm not musically talented whatsoever, but the one thing that I can compare it to is like, I used to be a news reporter, and I remember, I started my news reporter career in 2014, and I remember looking at my news reports that would go up on the website after I was live and over analyzing how I inflected certain words, how I looked, like that hair was out of place. A couple years down the road, I was literally doing news reports like after I put lipstick on without even using a mirror. I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. Like I just stopped caring, because I was like, it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. And now, being on camera in some capacity for more than a decade, I mean, I really don't give a shit. Like, and it's a great freeing feeling. And that's not to say I'm not putting in the same amount of effort. I'm just not overanalyzing what goes out there, because I have a trust in myself that it is good enough, because I've been doing this for a long time.
Of course. And you're doing it frequently enough that one hair out of place is not going to matter, because there's so much going out that like the value is in the quantity, not necessarily the minute details of what exists in one little portion of whatever it is that you put out.
Exactly. Because that one little thing means a lot more when you've only put out 3 pieces of content versus 300.
Exactly.
And I know that not every producer, because I have a lot of producer friends, and my brother's one of them. And I know Goshfather is like a big proponent of this.
I love him.
Like he's so awesome. Like just putting out as much music as he possibly can. And I know not everyone's brain works that way, but the more you do something, the better you are going to get at it. Like that's a fact of life, whether it's making music or, learning to run a mile.
So 10,000 hours scenario. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's more chances to go viral. That's what everybody's trying to do right now. So if you're only releasing like one thing every 3 or 4 months, you're giving yourself 3 or 4 chances a year at a viral moment.
Yeah. So, yeah. Those odds are pretty garbage.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So what do you think that, what does an artist need to learn on their own first before they can confidently say, yeah, I'm somebody who, can work with a manager, like I deserve to have that help?
I think that you should have a pretty good understanding of what it is that you're going to want your manager to do. Because otherwise, like, you're the leader of the team. You know what I mean? So if you are just kind of, I'm going to bring a manager on, but I don't really know exactly what they're going to be doing or how they can help me, then it's just up to the manager to determine whatever it is that they're going to do for you. Versus if you have an understanding of, okay, I've done this myself, it's to the point where it's inhibiting me from being able to do the things that I need to do, like creating music, creating content, the creative portion of being an artist. I'm unable to do that because I'm being bogged down by all of these administrative sort of tasks. Then I think it's a good time to have a conversation with a manager, because they can step in to a role that you've kind of already committed to yourself, and you're just passing the torch and then able to focus on the things that you're able to do that nobody else is able to do for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And I know, like, especially when it comes to, and I mean, this is for artists who, have some gigs under their belt, they're starting to get some bigger shows. One thing that can be incredibly helpful is having that buffer of someone to negotiate on your behalf, make requests on your behalf. Because once you like I've gotten myself in situations with certain partners where now I have help. Like I have someone who does PR for me, and I have to keep the relationships that I've established myself kind of leading the charge on that communication.
Yeah.
But it kind of does me a disservice because if I had him doing it for me, he could make more requests.
Yeah.
And there'd be that buffer there. And so I think that's like one of the coolest parts about management is having someone be your advocate.
100%. Yeah. It's very important to be able to have somebody negotiating on your behalf, especially as you get deeper into the music industry, you realize it's actually a very small group of people. And so if you don't know them directly, you definitely know them second or third hand. And negotiating on your own behalf is always difficult, especially when you're trying to grow. So having somebody to kind of advocate for you and you being able to remove yourself from that scenario, I think is invaluable.
Yeah. And I think like, okay, so I was just thinking about like when we bought our condo last year and having, the real estate agent kind of put in all of our offer requests for us. And then the attorney putting in like our punch list requests for us. Like I feel like a lot of artists may feel awkward. It's like, well, I know this person and, so why am I going to have someone negotiating? It's like, no, everyone knows kind of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the one thing that when people first enter this next level, they might be new to the game and it seems unnatural. But I think that's a big part of like what you do is kind of like showing them that like, hey, this is what I do. You focus on your art. Yeah. And it's so easy to fall into traps in the music business with getting underpaid and bad deals with labels. So it's super important to have someone like you advocating for them.
Yeah. And I think there's a side of it where, as you're growing as an artist, more of your friends are going to come with opportunities, right? And it's like, oh, well, we'll put you in this room or do this or whatever. And it ends up, if you're doing too many favors, it's going to be very hard to scale where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And so just because you're kind of having a moment and now all of your friends are finally paying attention when they haven't been paying attention for a very long time, doesn't mean it's actually in your best interest if you're the one that's like, oh yeah, for sure, I'll come play an hour for free, or yeah, 100%, you can get on this record and I won't charge you anything, or whatever, those scenarios are. So you have to also be mindful of the favors that you're doing and if they're actually helping you elevate or whether it's just kind of a Band-Aid on a larger scenario that needs to be addressed.
That's such a tough thing. And like you said, like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube with that. Would you say that like even some of like the big artists that you've worked with or seen in passing, do they still get themselves in sticky situations sometimes?
Yeah, some of them do. It's just because, you want to do favors for your friends and you want to have that moment where you're like peers and people that have seen you kind of come through the journey are now recognizing you in this elevated space. But if it's necessarily the best thing for the longevity of your career is another conversation.
Yeah. And that's what you were kind of saying about like, you're always going to have the same problems, but now having a manager or a team kind of helps you mitigate them and navigate them with a trusted professional.
Yeah, I'm always the bad guy, but I don't mind being the bad guy if it's in the best interest of the people that I'm working for.
I love that. I was just going to ask, do you feel like your role is villainized at all in the industry?
Sometimes, but it's okay because I think that it's advantageous for everybody to do what needs to be done to scale whatever it is that they're working on. So I heard this thing one time about negotiations that always stuck with me. And it was a good negotiation is when both sides feel like they got screwed. And it kind of makes sense though, right? Because at the end of the day, like somebody's going to come in very high, somebody's going to come in very low, and eventually you're going to find yourself in the middle. And if both parties feel like that they sacrificed something to get the end result that they wanted, then that's a fair deal. If somebody comes in and asks incredibly high and lands it, then I think somebody got taken advantage of. And I'm here to protect my clients. I'm here to protect my team, and I'm here to protect the business that we've created. So
Yeah.
if that makes me a villain, so be it.
I love that. My husband and I have this habit of watching Shark Tank at dinner every night.
I love Shark Tank.
It's so good. So when you said that, I was just thinking about, and now we're at the stage where we've seen so many episodes because we went back and we're watching like old seasons where we can guess. We're like, Kevin's going to say $1 royalty in perpetuity and 5% equity. And it's funny because like when you see business owners who are desperate and they leave there with a deal where they got screwed, but the shark got the better deal, you're like, oh, I feel bad for them,
But had they done their research, like the way that you're doing, for instance, they would have known whatever the offer was going to be and found out a right way to counter. And I think that definitely applies to the industry because it's the same labels, it's the same promoters, it's the same talent buyers, it's all of those things. So if you know how somebody is going to come in and negotiate, then you're prepared for it.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, it is such a small industry. And so one or two deals that are heavily in favor of the talent buyers or whoever's, producing the festivals, that can set precedent for like a lot of artists.
Yeah.
The scales can be tipped very easily.
Yeah, I think doing a one-time favor to get your foot in the door and prove your value, like I'm all for that. I'm not saying do it for free, but if it's a reduced fee with a back end or something where it can become fair, but you also have to carry your weight, then I'm 100% there for it. Because you have to show that you're a good investment to the people that you're doing business with. The same way that you don't want to book a show for an outrageous amount of money, but then you show up and maybe there's 100 people there. Doesn't matter how much money you're making at the end of the day. You can't use the content. You're not in front of the people that are going to help propel your career forward. So if you're there to catch a bag, then great. But I think everybody that's really trying to make this their full-time thing and not working multiple jobs to sustain a career in music needs to be at least making educated decisions when it comes to those sorts of things.
That's such a good point. And I think it's like it can be scary to think about these things, but if you learn, first of all, like negotiations aren't black and white. It's not just money exchanged for a service. Like there's other benefits that you can get out of things, like you were saying. And there's crafty ways to make a deal work in your favor, even if it's not direct monetary support. Like you can definitely get creative, especially when you're first starting out. And it reminds me of a conversation I was having with one of my Patreon students yesterday. We were talking about, because he's really trying to like grow his following, and we were talking about like his reel strategy versus his feed strategy. And I was explaining what reels are for finding new people, and the feed is to nurture your existing audience. Yes. And so it was kind of like what you're saying, like, okay, you're going to get paid a lot of money, but 100 people are going to be there. Like you have to think about, yes, like just like the reels or getting a big payment, that's important because that signals to the powers that be that you have value. But what are you doing with like your core audience that loves you for you? Are you still nurturing them? Yeah. And that's like what contributes to your longevity. It's not just about getting the next bag, getting to this next milestone of followers. Like you were given this attention for a reason. How do you keep it? And so,
as quickly as you can get attention, you can lose it. And so that's the main thing, is how do all the people that are paying attention to you in the moment, how do you keep them around? Yeah. That is like, I think maybe one of the biggest challenges right now, because people are having moments where things are going very viral and then maybe they're getting a bunch of followers, but they're not necessarily retaining them. And it's like, okay, well, how much attention were you actually paying these people? Besides the like and follow that you received from them, what did you give them in return? Did you reach out? Thank you for the follow. Are you cultivating that core group of people? Did you invite them to your broadcast channel so they can, meet other people, or your fan groups or your Discord, so they can continue to have conversations about you with people who are also interested in you? Like you have to go above and beyond to make sure that these people feel like they found a home because they will find somebody else to follow and like their videos
100%.
2 seconds later. Yeah.
100%. Our attention span is shot. And, something someone told me when I was first starting like my independent, working for myself journey was your social media audience can be taken away from you at any time. Like you can get banned from a platform and they won't give you it back. And it doesn't matter. So you really need to make sure that the fans of your music will be like, if that ever happened to you, oh my God, where is so-and-so? Like I need to find them somewhere else. Because to get someone to perform that action, to go off platform, like even though realistically it takes maybe 30 seconds to look someone up somewhere else or go to their website, people don't do it.
They don't.
If you're not nurturing those fans in some way, and it doesn't have to be rocket science, but find a way to stay engaged and do a little bit of auditing of, well, why did they come here in the first place? It's because they liked my funny content. Did they like my inspirational like storytelling? Like how can I give them more of what got them in the door in the first place?
I think that's a big part of it is your fans will always tell you what they want. So I think that artists a lot of times are trying to reinvent the wheel. And it's like, okay, well, I have all this attention, so now I have to go do something cool and new and fresh. And it's like, no, you just got a lot of really amazing attention because of something that you were already doing. So once you've identified whatever's working, double down on that and stop kind of focusing on everything else for a minute at least, because you'll see really quickly whether that fan base that you're acquiring is the fan base that you want to keep. Sometimes you'll put a piece of content out and you'll get a bunch of fans, but it's not necessarily the fans that you want to have. And so you also kind of need to be aware of those things.
Dude, that's happened to me on TikTok. Like TikTok is one of the easiest places to go viral. And I have gone viral multiple times for really stupid shit. And guess what? They don't convert to my other videos. Stuff I actually care about. Right. I treat TikTok more as like just my yapping journal, I call it. Like I really don't have a strategy on there. It's just for shits and giggles. And it's fine. Like I like it to be kind of that place where I just brain dump anything that doesn't fit into like my Instagram.
Yeah.
But I post like silly stuff on there or story times that like get people all riled up. And I think in a way it contributes to my personal brand because it's like my version of storytelling or whatever it is. But I can tell you they don't give two shits about my podcast clips on there. So you don't chase the virality because that's not necessarily going to convert to what you need. And like at the end of the day, followers do not mean more money in the long run. Like maybe sure some promoter says, oh, this guy has 100,000 followers, we got to book him. But I can tell you, I've been to clubs where they've booked the DJ with 100,000 followers and the room was half full.
I have worked with influencers and I can tell you that followers do not mean ticket buyers and they do not mean streams. So it's very interesting. I worked with some influencers prior to developing my management company and stuff. And it was an interesting time to see all of these followers and views on social media platforms and then take them to, an in-person thing where you would think, oh, well, all these people follow you online, so of course they want to meet you. No, they don't. They want to see you from the comfort of their home when they're sitting on the couch in their pajamas eating popcorn.
100%. And I think that also speaks to like the strong personal brand. If you have a strong personality that like people like, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Is it Tana?
Mojo.
Yes.
Yeah.
People love her, right? I feel like I don't really know who she is, but I feel like that's somebody people would go out to meet because she's
I would say she's polarizing for sure.
Yeah. But that does not compare to someone who their videos are just like get ready with me's and them trying on different clothing hauls from like Shein. Like that's not, you have to have, if no matter you're an artist, whatever you are, if you want to be famous, you have to have a strong personal brand that's going to get people curious and invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to want to know more, right? If they're getting everything that they could ever want just from the comfort of their own home, then why would they spend the money or the time or anything to go outside of that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one thing, like I hype up James Hype way too much on this show, but he posts these great storytelling videos of like how he was working at a shoe store when he was, 19 and wanted to go to Ibiza for the summer and his work wouldn't let him. So he called in sick and then he went and he got fired. And now he's headlining that same club that
I
he went
love it.
to. And even though he's talking about his journey as a DJ, but that's a relatable thing to so many people.
I mean, that sounds like my story. So I'm 100% with you on the relatable thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like stuff like that is so simple. It's such a simple, and I think sometimes we overcomplicate things. It's like, oh, I got to make like this highly produced piece of content. It's like, no,
Yeah.
if you have a good story that's going to resonate with a lot of people, like don't be afraid to share that because that could be your way of connecting.
Absolutely. I think we live in a time right now where the overly produced content's actually not doing well at all. Mm-hmm. It's, and I have this conversation with my artists a lot. It's like, just open up your phone and turn it around. And I started something earlier in the year where I started actually doing that myself and just every day would get on and talk about whatever. And it's been something that I definitely want to restart doing because I can't tell you, I still am going to shows now and have people come up to me and like, I really just love what you were posting online. And it's like, because you relate to whatever it is that I was saying. Mm-hmm. And when your fans can relate to you and you've actually created a relationship and there's a bond there, it's really hard to break that bond. But in order to create that bond, there has to be something more than just a live clip of you DJing in front of a bunch of people or like a music video or something like that. They want to know who you are and why they should care about you.
100%. And that is true no matter what genre of music, right? Like that's why there are millions of documentaries about the Rolling Stones and about Beyonce. Like people want to know more. It's not enough to just show up and perform. And that's not to say that you can't have a level of privacy. Like you don't have to share everything. You can control like what gets out there, but definitely, I mean, it comes with it. It comes with the territory. If you want to be performing in front of people, like they dictate what they want from you and they're your bosses.
Kind of. I think that that's the hardest pill for artists to swallow because when you start your artistic journey, you're always like trying to do what feels like the best representation of who you are. And that's the product that you're delivering to the world. And so you just are under this kind of guise that no matter what it is that you do, that people are just going to accept it. And at the end of the day, that's great if you want to be a starving artist. But if you want to make this, your career and something that not only that you survive off of, but your team survives off of it. There's families often involved, like there's children that are eating off of the money that's being generated. Your fans are the ones that are paying you at the end of the day. Like the promoter's getting the money from the fans to pay you. Spotify, although they're paying you a fraction of a penny for a stream, they're getting that money from the people who are listening to, whatever. So those fans are the ones that you constantly have to feed. And it does, I think, come to a point where if you're very lucky in that Venn diagram of what the fans want, what you want, and in the middle is that sweet spot, then I think that you've created something just truly, truly invaluable. But a lot of times that's not the case. And what you want to produce and what the fans want you to produce are slightly different, if not totally different. And you have to decide whether you're willing to kind of sacrifice those immediate artistic needs to feed, the bigger machine.
Well, it's all about give and take. I mean, it is anything in life. So what would you say all the artists that you work with, what's like a trait that they have in common that makes them so successful?
They're all insane music producers and they all can do it really quickly. And I think that that's like what really sets a lot of people apart is good music will find its way, but repetition is key. And if you can kind of find that balance of producing high level music repeatedly and frequently, then you're in a completely different lane than a lot of other people because it takes a lot of people a long time to produce the level of music I think a lot of my guys are able to do in a day.
Wow. Yeah. Speed. I mean, that's a very real, like there's no fluff there. It's like, get good at what you do and be fast about it.
Well, it goes back to the 10,000 hours thing. They've all put in the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
They've become masters of the craft. It's not overnight. Some of it is definitely just God-given ability, but there's a lot of them that have just really stuck their nose in and put in the work to get to where they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I want to ask you a question for my Patreon audience, but before we wrap up, there's not very many places that artists can naturally bump into someone like yourself, where they're like, they feel confident to approach you and, say, hi, Corynne, like I'm an artist and let's, so where, like, what would you suggest to them? Where can people start to like hang out and not like be annoying about it, but where they can naturally meet some industry folks and start to develop those relationships so that maybe in the future something can happen there?
I mean, definitely at music festivals, we all go out in the crowd and are not necessarily living backstage. Like if we have the opportunity to go experience it, we are going out and trying to experience those moments. Clubs are the same thing. It's pretty small. So if you have the opportunity to get, into what I did was I started buying tables at nightclubs. I didn't know anybody. But I would get a group of 5 of my friends together. We would all pitch in on a bottle, buy the DJ booth, and I was able to meet a lot of people that way. And I was able to meet the DJs. I was able to meet the promoters. I was able to meet the people who would end up buying tables for my artists when they started playing those venues. Not everybody obviously has those resources, but crowdfunding a table is definitely something that I would encourage.
Okay. If you get like every DJ has other friends that are DJs, right? Like you're not like the only DJ you know. And so if you can get like 10 buddies, okay. I just put a deposit down on a table for November for ABO. I think it was like the table is like $1,200. Okay. You get 10 people to do that. That's not that bad.
It's not.
It's a write-off technically, and it's an investment if you're using it for business, and it's an investment in your career, in the future of your career. I think that's a great idea.
Going to network, you get the content, and you have a good time while you're doing it with people that you like. So it's a win-win. It worked really well for me.
I love that tip. I've never thought of that before, and that's fantastic. This has been awesome. I want to have you stick around for like 2 more minutes. We can chat about Patreon, but thank you so much for this. Where can people find you online?
At Corynne Dustry on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook is Corynne Burrows, and I'm on all the platforms.
Love it. I love Corynne Dustry. That's such a good name.
Thank you.
And if you guys are interested in that Patreon clip, we talk about crisis management and Corynne's role in helping her artists navigate it. So things like old tweets resurface, or you did something stupid in public and now EDM Twitter is, there's a shitstorm on there. So crisis management, how to navigate it. There's some really good tips in there. If you guys want to check that out on my Patreon, it's linked in the show notes. And the first tier, the $5 tier, gets you access to that bonus content. So enjoy that. Other housekeeping items. We are getting so close to Chicago Music Nexus. I'm literally freaking out. I'm so excited. I have 3 of my Patreon students now confirmed flying in for this. So this event is much bigger than Chicago. This is for DJs and producers from anywhere and everywhere. If you love music and you want to make a name for yourself in this scene, Chicago Music Nexus is the place to be. We have so many amazing panels. We have artist managers on the panels. So hint, hint, you're going to be able to chat with them during our networking sessions. We've got an amazing open bar sponsored by CH Distillery and System Seltzers that also includes mocktails. We have great catering. We have it all. Guys, we have it all. $30 off. If you want that, the code is podcast. So use the code podcast for $30 off your pass. And I think that's it for this week. As always, I'll talk to you next week. Stay elevated.